Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ace Podcast. Today I have my boy Mike Wallace. If you do not know him, he is like the governor or the mayor of Philadelphia. My man Mike is plugged in with everybody, every football person you know. I go through Mike to make sure I get my connection. How about that?
I wish, man.
How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. How about you, man? I appreciate you having me on.
I'm doing great. Of course, I had to get you on, man. I remember having those conversations in like 2008, 9, 10, somewhere around there, where we like, oh, we got so much talent in the city, and having conversations with Greg Garrett and Andre Odom. So there's a lot of talent in the city. There's a lot of people like yourself that have helped and have been able to give guidance to the athletes that they really didn't have before. So I guess on that note, I'm going to jump into the questions. I want to ask you, like, first, let's take a step back. What's your background just in general? Where are you from? What school you went to? All that good stuff.
So born and raised Philly, went to George Washington, played at George Washington, coached at George Washington for a long time, won a lot of championships, had a really, really good run, had a lot of kids go to college. After that, went on to Temple, was a student assistant coach there. Coached there for 2014, 15, 16, 3 seasons. Went to Baylor for another 3 seasons. Was 4 seasons, was the director of player personnel and development. Did a lot of things over between those times, working with pros and all types of crazy things.
I mean, it's impressive. It makes me proud, obviously, because, when you see guys around your age from the city able to get plugged in with Division I colleges, and you were with those guys. One, you started off, as you said, you were at Washington. You had Coach Cohen, who's a legend. All right. Then to be able to go to Temple and get plugged in there, were you with Adazio to start, or were you after that?
I was not. I was after Adazio. I was Matt Rule after his first year.
Right. So, I mean, you were with Matt Rule. You were able to go over to Baylor when he was there, and a lot of success. I talked previously on one of my shows about how much I respect Coach Rule and what he does, and really opened the door for a lot of coaches and mentors and everything from Philly. So he's really a big piece. So that's awesome. So, all right, in those experiences, you did player personnel and player development. Could you give us a little idea about what those things were entailed?
So, player personnel was basically recruiting. In all reality, it's pretty much the development of the team, the construction and development of the roster, finding and identifying prospects, and also going to get them and actually getting these guys and building a competitive, successful team. The development side was more like personal, like off the field type stuff, like families, all volunteer type stuff, academic, kind of bridging the gap and making a connection between life on the field and off the field for those guys.
That was super important, because what Coach Rule was all about was about family and being able to bring that aspect to what Temple was doing in recruiting and making a strong relationship. He was able to get a lot of like national recruits, and even guys that weren't national recruits but were dogs. Right. And you guys were able to connect with their families and get them to commit to, let's say, a Temple over a Rutgers, and even sometimes like Penn State. So it was, what you guys did was pretty amazing at that time. So kudos to you on that, man.
Absolutely.
So with that being said, you have a lot of experience in dealing with families, dealing with recruits. Could you give us a little bit of information? I actually ran into you at a coach's clinic in Delaware, and you were doing a seminar on recruiting. Could you talk a little bit about one, to help the watchers, whether it be the parent or the student? Tell us a little bit about what goes into recruiting a high school player.
I'm gonna sit up for this one.
It's a lot, right?
Yeah, man. Recruiting is a really interesting game. And I say game because it's pretty much that But I think people also get confused that it's a really harsh business, and it's a lot of harsh truths that come with recruiting and everything that comes with it. Uh, Most people don't really understand the magnitude of the moment as they go through it. You know, like they always say, life is like hindsight is 2020. Like while they're in the moment, everybody's really like kind of enjoying it and going through the process, but they don't realize every decision that they make really has like long-term ramifications. Um, like I said, it's just when people don't quite understand, they can sometimes focus on the wrong things. And when you're making a decision that big and you focus on the wrong things, the result may not be what you think what it should be.
Right. So, as you said, recruiting is like it's a game, and I tell my quarterbacks and receivers a lot of times, I'm like, it's almost like a dating game, because you find something, you find a school that you like,
Right.
and they might not like you as much as you like them, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe they might like you more than you like them. So it's really a game that has to be played the right way, especially now because of the pandemic. A lot of guys are missing out on so many opportunities because
Mm-hmm.
either they think it's still the same game, or they believe that they're whoever's helping them in the process, the coach or mentor, is not understanding how it's a little bit different. So
Right.
could you give us a little perspective, your own perspective of how the game has changed a little bit in recruiting because of the pandemic?
The pandemic condensed everything, while condensing everything, it took away so many resources that colleges use to evaluate and recruit guys. So you think about for what uh, 15, 16 months, coaches couldn't go off campus and recruit guys. So you pretty much signed an entire class without going out and evaluating them on the road in person their senior year. That's a
Right.
hard thing to do. Like live evaluation is like a really, really big part of most programs. Like um, guys get offers like committable versus like non-committable offers, and sometimes a non-committable offer is like they need to see you play in person or they need to work you out and things like that until they'll say, hey, you can actually commit and come to our school. And it kind of plays into everything else. It's just like it's so much that goes into it, but people don't really understand. But you think when you take these colleges and now they got to evaluate and pretty much change the system that everybody has known since the beginning and completely take away one of the largest aspects and say, hey guys, you got to change and be different and figure it out and still be effective. Like that's the hard part. Like at the end of the day, the reality is no fans and nobody else wants to hear, hey, we had a down year and we couldn't do this, so the product has fallen or the players aren't as good. There really are no excuses in college football. Any year can be the year for a coach. So it that was I think just one part of it, and also I think it put a lot of strain on kids. I think a lot of kids again didn't really understand the magnitude of what was going on. And a lot of guys like waited and
Mm.
they wanted to do certain things and they hoped that they were going to be able to do visits and this, that, and the third. And they end up missing windows. And when you have a smaller amount of offers at, let's say, the lower Division I level, the smaller conferences, group of five schools, and those start to dry up on you, end up falling to the FCS and everything else, which it's not a bad option. But it's just like, you could have been at a higher level with a little bit, maybe more resources, something like that, or a different opportunity. But again, not understanding the situation and the ramifications of everything kind of made it a little bit different.
So that's great information, man, and I'm sure there's a lot of guys that'll be listening. They're like, man, okay, so I understand that. So what do you think guys can do now if they did miss the boat per se for that first evaluation period or that first committable time frame, which is December?
Um, I mean, the best thing they can do now is do your best you can early in the season, like put your best foot forward on the field, in the classroom, and everything else around it. It's like all you can really do at this point is give yourself the best opportunity and kind of give yourself the best shot all the way around. Like you think if schools are like, if you get kind of a fringe player, things like that, a lot of those things come down to like, hey, what kind of kid is he? What's his attendance like? What's his behavior like? Does he have issues, history with law enforcement? All type of different things come into play. So for me, it's like when we going on guys late, we would try to gather a whole lot of information in a short amount of time. And unfortunately, one of the negatives of that is you may not get a complete picture. Like sometimes the full picture takes time to play itself out. But unfortunately, we can only go by the information we have. And some of these things are unfortunately big enough to stop you from taking guys.
So you say you might not get the whole picture. What kind of things fit into the whole picture?
Typically it's like grades. Like a lot of guys like when they transfer schools and things like that, it's hard to follow with the grades and get transcripts, and you really don't know what their grades were in the past. A lot of, especially like coming from Philly, like a lot of times the Catholic schools, it's like, oh, my child went to Catholic school, but we don't have the grades, or they won't release it to us for whatever reasons. And it's like, okay, well now we kind of got to go on your word, unfortunately, which like we'll do it as people, but it's like your registrar's office, they ain't really trying to hear that. So it's like, it's a whole lot of things that kind of go into it. I mean, you got grades amongst a whole realm of other things. It's just like I tell everybody, it's just, you think behavior, what everybody thinks about you, your social media. Like we try to use any and everything possible to create a picture of the person that we're trying to recruit.
Wow.
As a player and as a person.
So let's pivot to one of the key things you just said, social media. What advice can you give guys about social media? And you know this firsthand. So you guys out there listening, make sure you pay attention to this stuff. I know you hear from, again, your coaches, your mentors, mom and dad, but you're listening to somebody who can give you advice from inside the office of a college university.
Social media is it's scary, just to be frank. It's like, social media, a lot of times the thoughts are so small, or the posts are so small, it doesn't give, again, a complete frame of what the thought is. And I think kids at times, or young adults at times, don't always realize that. And they'll tweet lyrics, or they'll retweet something, or they'll like a picture. And they do these different things. And it's like, hey guys, I don't know what you meant. I really don't know what the intention was, but this kind of looks bad. The scary part about that is schools pay services a lot of money to scrub the guys that they're recruiting social media. And you can get flagged on many different types of levels, like from hot words to sexual to violence to whatever, pretty much whatever they want. And I have seen literally, I've seen guys like elementary school post get tagged, and like we literally had to say, like, come on guys, like he was a kid,
right?
My kid didn't even use it. He didn't even have access to the account no more. But it just kind of shows you, like, anything you do, once you do it, it's out there. And you never know when it's going to rear its head. Like, it's a scary thing.
That is scary, man. I think the idea of, when you think about the way the mind works, and I was in education, so they talk about how the maturity of a teenager or adolescent is not there for them to, they make decisions without thinking about the consequence. So a lot of times people just, that's what we say with our boys all the time. And that's literally all they think. And they don't think who's looking at that. They just think their boys are looking at it. So now they get kicked out of school, or they get suspended, or they lose out on a scholarship, which is even worse because it's something that they said, and they don't even have the instincts or the understanding or the empathy to apologize for it sometimes, because they don't even see what's wrong. So it's very big, man. Social media, guys, make sure you pay attention to that.
I think you talk about Coach Rule and the way how he was, and like he got developed people. I think that's one of the big things with him. Like, he developed our players and like the people around the program to kind of realize that, have an understanding of others. And like, for me personally, like, I think he has such an in-depth understanding of people and who they are and like how to get through to them. I think that's what makes him a special individual, and that's why he's successful. It's like, he finds a way to kind of get through to you and get you to understand the message in your own way.
Right.
And it's like, dealing with college kids, you're dealing with a lot of different types of personalities, from different backgrounds, different walks of life. But I think I think he's one of the best at getting through the guys and really getting them to understand. And I think for me, that's kind of like we coming from the same cloth. I think that's why you like for me, that's why we do the things I do, and I think that's why you kind of do the same thing you do to kind of help, kind of change and kind of set new trends and get things to where they should be.
Yeah, man, that's again very important information. And as a young man, if you almost take take a step back and humble yourself and not think it's just about you, that can really help you in understanding, like, all right, when I post this, who else is it affecting? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I used to always tell guys, if you don't want your grandmom to see it, don't post it.
Right. Everybody got that.
Grandmom gonna say something bad.
Or if you think it might be bad, then it's not worth posting. Right. You know, they're like, oh, I wonder if I should post. That means, nope, exit out.
You ain't gonna gain nothing from this post. That's
right. That's the other thing too.
Like, what are you gaining from it?
They want a couple likes.
Yeah,
and that's pretty sad, but it's the reality now.
That's 2021, baby.
Woo. All right, so now let's hop into guys are trying to, let's just say this in normal world, right? We're getting back to normal a little bit. I know we're having a little hiccup, but when we get back to normal, how can guys fix it, or how can guys adjust themselves so that they can stand out to a college coach or a college recruiter? Like what steps are there specific steps that every guy should take to kind of get themselves out there?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's almost simple to a T if you can follow it. I think it's just hard to do it all the time, if that makes sense. But I think be the best you that you can be all the time, on the field and off the field. Like, you think about it, when we come in and evaluate you, of course, football brings us in. It's like the first attraction. Like we attracted to your talent and everything else. And then once we get the attraction, we go in and we go figure out, hey, what's his grades like? Hey, what type of person is he? Hey, is he a people person? Like, does he treat everybody the same? We try to figure out any and everything we can. So it's like, you never know who can be the person that might say a bad thing about you, that might leave a bad taste in somebody's mouth. So, and like I said, I've heard some really crazy stories. I've seen like high school coaches say really crazy things about their own players. And it's like, having all that in mind, you don't want to give anybody the opportunity to say anything bad about you. So right. You do the best you can all the time. It's not saying guys will make mistakes and things like that happen. I think with these guys being young high school players, they're afforded a certain leeway to make mistakes. But it's like, I always tell guys, do the best you can every day. Mm-hmm. Like, try it. Like, do classroom, try to get A's and B's. Like, guys will ask guys, hey, how your grades? Oh, they good.
Right. Well, what's good? A little hesitation. Yeah, they good. They straight.
It's like, nah, that ain't it, man. Mm-hmm. Like, you gotta. But if you had A's and B's, it'd be a lot easier for you to answer that question. Right. So it's like, I kind of look at it now like, no, just you know what? If you got to sit inside and study for extra 3 hours a day instead of playing Fortnite or something else, you got to do that. Right. Fortunately, if what you're saying that this is really what you want. Like I tell a lot of guys, this thing is not easy. To be a scholarship football player, to be a collegiate football player at any level isn't easy. Like, it comes with its own trials and issues, and you got to be somewhat like dedicated to get through it. Mm-hmm. Like, if you won't make the necessary sacrifices in high school, you probably won't do it when you get to the next level. Yeah, well, and the biggest thing is that I think the high school guys don't understand that the college coach, well, one, getting recruited, a high school coach is not going to back you up if they can't trust you. If they can't trust that you're going to do what they expect the college coaches to do or see, because that's their word. And now if their word is not trustworthy, now you're screwing up that high school coaches, all the kids that come after you. Exactly. So, and then the college coach, they have the ability, or they don't have the ability to bring somebody in that doesn't perform or does something that's going to tarnish the reputation, because now that guy's job, literally his livelihood, his kids, the way he feeds his kids is in jeopardy. So again, that's that humble juice that every high school kid has to understand, that, it's not just about you. It's about who you're representing. It's about your high school. You're representing your high school. You're representing your college when you go, which is even more of a business at that point.
So it's the feelings like, oh, you get them second chances there. That's out the window.
Hey, just think about this for 1 second. Like, to your point, like a college coach's decision to recruit a player can literally cost him his job down the line somewhere if that player makes certain mistakes or has certain missteps. And because of that, like you said, it's not only affecting that coach, it's affecting his family, it's affecting his staff. It affects so many people. It's like a tree of people that's affected.
That's true.
So with that being known and understood, it's like it's really hard to leave anything to chance per se. It's like we got to get as much information as we possibly can and try to make the best decision for us. Like, hey, you know what? Like, I think we all know certain kids coming to college with a lot more issues than others. And then the reality is, you know what? The higher your talent level, the more it affords you. And that's just the truth, I think, at any level of football. But I think a lot of guys also have their level of talent confused in the scheme of things. And it's like, you know what? You may think you're this, which you may be in Philadelphia or on a local scale. But when you factor in the bigger picture, it's like, wait, it kind of changes dramatically. And I think a lot of guys got to recognize that. And I think, again, that's where it kind of comes into the whole picture of grades and academics. Like, how are you going to set yourself apart? Because you're not really just competing with the city of Philadelphia. You're competing with every high school player across the country for a limited amount of spots. So how do you set yourself apart? And how do you become different? And it's like, yo, you know what? The more you do, the better. Like, you know what? If you can, like, volunteer and like do different things for other people, and the more you do it, only looks better.
Yeah. So you brought up a really good point. Now I got to touch on this. In the recruiting world, how does the Philadelphia area, not from your perspective, how is the Philadelphia area looked at in terms of recruiting? We can go on different positions if you want to, but how in general is the Philadelphia area looked at in recruiting? Not talking about Jersey, not talking about anywhere else.
Just strictly Philly. I think Philly as a whole has a reputation now for like individual talent. Like, you can come to Philly and find a great college player, a like really good pro, or even that like great pros are coming out now. And it's like we had that reputation. I don't think we had the reputation as like good football as a whole, if that makes sense. Like our league will probably be looked at in the lower tiers compared to some other places, or most other places, I guess.
So my question is, what do you think Philadelphia area quarterbacks can do to be, or teams can do to boost the quarterbacks in recruiting? Yeah.
You're trouble.
Without saying names or programs.
I think the one thing I learned from being in Texas for those years, like those schools run styles of football that are conducive to college and pro styles. You see a lot of spread, like zone read stuff. You see a lot of like.
What's the youngest age do you see the spread run at?
Oh my God, bro! Wherever they start, it's not even funny. Like, now, I will say this: the culture is just different. Like,
it's just different, yeah.
I would even go on to say, like, Philly has an amazing basketball culture when you think about everything we do and how it kind of goes into it. Like, you know how a guy can like you can get 10 of the top guys in Philly on any given day at any court in Philly and have a great like pickup and they're getting good work. It's not really like that in football until you get to Texas. And it's like, yo, you got like versus like where it's like you and it's 3 other guys at a time. It's like, oh no, guys, these workout sessions are 40, 50, 60, 70 guys every time.
And they all D1 guys.
They're all
or can be.
They're all but it starts like young. It's like they do so many different things with these guys, like in developmental stages. Like, so by the time they get to middle school and high school, like they're already ingrained with football. They get to high school, they have a football class. Like, It was the most amazing thing in the world. They take a period. And I remember Coach Cohen, it was so funny. I remember being at Washington, Coach Cohen tried to do it, and we didn't really get it done to the extent that he wanted to. But like they had a football class where during that period, like schools, you had the option, you can go practice, you can go watch film, go lift.
I've heard about that.
But that's a football period during the school day. And they get credit for it. It's like replacing the gym class.
Wow. And you have, so unfortunately, against the weather of Texas, you can do that stuff year round.
Absolutely.
In Philadelphia, you have to worry about the cold rain, then the snow, then just the brutal cold. So our springs are really nasty. And in spring in Texas, they're doing full equipment practices and scrimmages.
Full spring ball, man.
Right.
Spring ball. And like I said, it's so amazing because for like recruiting wise, again, you want to think about advantages. Like that's another advantage for coaches to go out and actually see those guys run around and actually play football live. Like we used to go do that. Like
right.
That gives two opportunities.
That's a big difference.
To move around.
As opposed to seeing guys in shirts and shorts in the spring, and you're like, I think I want to offer him, but I just saw this boy in Texas who actually played a game against somebody, and he was the real deal.
Yeah.
That's tough, man. That's tough to go against.
And it makes it harder. But I will say this: you want to talk about like what we're figuring out about Philly football. I think one of the things that we've known for a while, but everybody else is starting to catch up on. So guys are starting to realize that Philly has developmental players with really high ceilings. Like you can take a Philly player, and because we don't have the facilities necessarily as other places as a whole, and the like we got off the top of my head, we got like G, we got Swift, we got Tone and Kenroy and all them guys. But I can name all of our guys for the most part off the top of my head. It's impossible there because there's so many different guys. It's just like they have so many different opportunities and resources to develop themselves at a younger stage than our guys. But when our guys get to that level, they typically like make the leap talent-wise. One of the things we also realize is like our Philly guys, you know, attitudes are typically like an issue. Like kind of, I guess being program guys would be like the term. Like Philly guys tend to be more individualistic, things like that. And that's why I was so excited to like kind of be a part of and see the draft process this year. Because a kid like Kyle, literally like almost single-handedly like started to change things. And then some of the other guys that like really came in and like impressed people in interviews and everything else. It's like when they do things like that, it makes Philly look better as a whole. And it's like a trickle-down effect. Like everybody starts to look more and more. And I think these guys this year did an absolutely amazing job of putting their best foot forward and giving Philly some good recognition.
That's awesome, man. Man, you dropped some jewels, bro. I appreciate it. I know we got people that are watching and listening that are going to be able to take some of this advice. So before we go, I wanted to ask, if you had one piece of advice that can help the most prospects possible, what would that one piece of advice be?
One piece of advice that can help most prospects
of any position, just getting themselves into the door in college or into the pros, or putting themselves in a position to become a pro.
I got you. So I think most people that play the game have like a favorite player at their position, things like that. And I think most of the time you like kind of emulate your game to an extent after them. Like you want to be great like them in different things. And I think the one thing I would say is if you want to be like those guys, you really got to be like those guys. It's like y'all see at the end of the day, the game is like payday. Like that's my G from Level 40 always say, you know what? The game's a payday, but you got to go to work all week to get paid. So, you know what? The process and going through everything that they go through preparation wise and getting ready, that's the process for them. And that's like the work. But then when it gets to the game and you see the result, that's payday. That's a direct result of the work that they put in before that.
Right.
So if you got these guys that you want to be like and you I don't want to say idolize, but you look up to as players, but you respect as players, like, emulate. Like I will say this, like Kyle Pitts is a great person to emulate. I think like hearing from like NFL people and things like that, like he was classified as a unicorn. Like some of the things that they were saying about him, like it was just almost like, this kid is almost unreal. Like it's almost hard to believe like this kid can have this type of like personality and background
and be that dominant.
Yeah, and I will say like like for me, a good one is Mark Webb. I think
Mm-hmm.
Mark Webb kind of like I think these guys that like did it and are doing it, I think emulate these guys and try to figure out what's the process and what they did. But I think as big as it is to see what they did football wise, it's as big as to realize what they did everything else wise
that people didn't see.
Yeah, because it's like that's the stuff they got them to this point. You want to talk about in school, like
they were great kids, always respectful. Exactly. Anybody would do anything for them because they were like that.
Exactly, and I think it's really, really interesting because a lot of these guys, they know these kids, they love these kids, they respect these kids. And when I say kids, I mean young men.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't really emulate them per se, or they won't necessarily say, you know what, they're doing this, I'm going to try to do this because I want to get where they're at. A lot of these guys tend to have like I'm going to do it my way.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is, ain't nobody really reinventing the wheel in this right now.
Yep.
Like that ain't it. Like I said, I think unfortunately for guys, you just seen like you can look it up, and I seen G post a lot on Instagram like Kyle was labeled like a unicorn on the football field.
And the word unicorn is like the compliment of all compliments. Like I mean, I didn't even hear it before until they started talking about Kyle.
Funny story. My man, I remember when Kyle was coming out of high school, and like I guess I could probably say this now. Like we actually got in trouble for like offering Kyle, but it was like a I had bad communication on my part. I offered Kyle without going through the right channels, and I ended up getting like punched on if I could recruit for it. Me and my man Coop. But it was really just Greg saying, "Yo, I got this kid that looks really, really good," and it was Kyle like doing. And this is when he was at Addington. This is before the Woodman was like, but this is before like all the hype. But long story short, I was like, Coach, I was standing on this kid. He's a great kid, yada yada yada. And I mean, I think everybody would have, but he proved us right with everything. Like this isn't like an aberration. Like this isn't something that we didn't see coming. Like no, you knew he was going to be this kid. Like this is who he always has been and things he's always done. And I think again, that's why it's like, do this all the time, guys. Like Kyle being young and working out all the time and having the commitment to be up there doing his thing every day, even when the other guys wasn't doing it. Do it. And I mean, it was him and a couple of his homies, like they constant up at the gym.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it all kind of pay off. So I think if you want to be like these guys and you want to get to the NFL and achieve the things they achieve, I think guys got to start really looking at them. And I think a lot of these guys are pretty close to where guys can reach out to them and actually like talk to them, but like figure out what to do.
That's the beauty of it is it's a whole crew of Philly guys around their age that all all the mentors and trainers, we all saw all of those guys always together, and we gave them everything we could. And now it's starting to like show. There's a lot of guys at Division I schools, Division II, NFL, and it's not even done yet. You know what I mean? So it's a beautiful thing to see.
You know what? I'll be honest. I think, like I thought, like I get in trouble for saying this all the time. Just a personal opinion, but I remember playing at Washington in the 2004 team. It was just like, this was a great, ridiculous team. The talent level was ridiculous. And then we got to the 2008, 2009 Washington teams with Jews. I was just like, oh my God, this is not even fair. And then it was the Imhotep teams. And it's like every time you see these waves change, it's like, Philly's meeting the challenge. We're up in the level. And I think that's us, right? Like that's just Philly who we are. Like we all competitive and we like to do better than the person before us and work hard to that extent. And I think you seeing us kind of resetting the bar every chance we get. It's like, somebody go get it, and somebody else go like, I'm gonna go get it. I'm gonna knock it down.
Yep.
And it's happening for us. So, and I think like one of the big things, like I think people don't realize, it was not only football. Like, and when I say not only football, it's not only actually on the field. Like, like I tell everybody, I really respect Gibran. I really respect G and Swift and all those guys, like Dre and everybody else that's like kind of coming through this process and kind of finding their own and creating lanes and then finding ways to like do it again and help other people. Like that's kind of what it's about. And I think we starting to get to that level where the future of Philly football it look real good.
That's awesome. Hey, bro, that's a great way to end it. Definitely excited about the future of Philly football. Mike was a big part of it. I want to thank him from the bottom of my heart. If you guys like the podcast, if you heard anything that you liked or can help you, make sure you give it a thumbs up on YouTube. Make sure you comment. And I'm looking forward to having Mike again. I'm sure he'll have some new news as he moves up the ladder. Thanks again, man. I appreciate you and looking forward to seeing you again. Yeah. Yep. Oh, don't worry. He's already said he was coming on the show, so we're gonna get that done. All right, no doubt, bro. Thanks for your time. Have a great one. All right, Ace it, baby.